Trip Hawkins was one of the earliest employees at Apple Computer, founded the video game giant Electronic Arts and the innovative startup 3DO. He now runs a company called Digital Chocolate, maker of mobile and social games like Zombie Lane and Millionaire City. It's the second largest social video game company, just behind Zynga, with more than 100 million monthly play sessions. Think of that. That's a big number. Trip, why is this era of gaming bigger than anything we've ever seen?
We're seeing this really rapid transformation where pretty soon we're going to have 2 billion people playing games. And for most of the history of the game industry, it was a hardcore market where you had to buy a special piece of equipment.
And that was growing, but it seemed limited. It didn't seem to spread over.
In a good phase, you'd get 100 million players. And they might spend, a couple $100 a year for a few years. So that was a, very good industry. But it's a whole new ballgame if you got 2 billion customers.
Is that about games that appeal to non-core gamers? And I'm sorry, that's more jargon. But there's this world of game geeks. The guys mostly, young guys mostly, stay up all night playing new games that involve lots of fighting and whatever.
Well, this is what's happened is that those gamers grew up. Now they have jobs. And they're actually, while they're at work, they're sneaking in sessions on Facebook. And maybe on the weekends, while they're watching their kids play sports, they're sneaking in a play session on their mobile phone, or while they're in an airport on their laptop. So what's happened is that gamers have gotten older. We've filled in a lot of the demographics. You have kids and adults playing, men and women playing. And they want simplicity and convenience. This is something that often happens with businesses as they mature. Customers give up performance. They want the convenience. So going to a tablet, going to a smartphone, having it inside your social network like Facebook, having it right there in the browser, and having different access points. And, of course, the games have to be much simpler, right? Because not everybody wants to play a really demanding game. And, frankly, a lot of hardcore gamers, they give up those games when they get married, when they have children, because they don't have the time for it.
Really?
But
You're going to blame my wife for this?
Oh, well, you have to ask her. That's between the two of you. But, when you get older, you have to fit it into the smaller time slices that are available. So that's why it gets fragmented across access points. But the guys that used to spend all the money on the console games, a lot of them, in fact, are the whales spending a lot of money on Facebook.
And Trip, in terms of mobile gaming, one of your theories is that the browser is going to be key. If that's so, what's going to happen to the app?
Well, the reason the browser is so important is that basically everybody knows how to use it. You've got 2 billion PCs, and they're in all the offices and all the schools, and all these kids are now growing up familiar with the browser. And the browser is going to spread from PCs to tablets. It's already very strong on phones in Japan. That's really what's driving the enormous game market in Japan. And eventually it's going to be showing up on TVs. You're going to see a lot of manufacturers of consumer electronics build in internet access and a little bit of computing power so that you can run a browser. Now, if you want to have a more high-performance form of computing and, say, gaming, then you do need native development and more hardware power. So for somebody that wants more power, they can get it. And, of course, right now with, say, a really good smartphone like an iPhone, the App Store is supreme because they've got a high-performance device and they've got a high-performance customer who wants higher performance. So there are certain things that would be harder to do as well in the browser. But what's going to happen over the next few years is the browser is just going to get better and better, and the performance is going to accelerate, and it's going to be much more ubiquitous than any other platform.
Interesting. It strikes me as you say that it's all for grabs now. A whole new type of company can come in, or maybe some of the old players can adapt. I want to talk to you about your company, Digital Chocolate, and how you're taking these ideas to make a new kind of video game company. We want to do that with Trip Hawkins right after the break.
And Trip, I want to start with Digital Chocolate, your new company. How does it stack up in the landscape of social and mobile gaming companies next to Zynga, which is presumably on top?
Well, Zynga is very large. Of course, there's rumors they're finally go public, and I think, frankly, that's going to be an exciting event for the whole industry. And then you have a really big drop to, I guess, what you could call the Seven Dwarves. And out of that next group of companies, we feel like out of the ones that are still independent, pure play companies, we're the largest. We believe our Facebook revenue is the highest. We have virtual goods games that are in the best business model, and so they monetize well, and we have a very high degree of traffic. So there are guys like Disney and EA, because of their acquisitions, that are still doing a little bit more traffic than we're doing. And there's a couple of guys that are around or slightly higher than our daily traffic levels that we know don't monetize as well. So we think we stack up quite well. And compared to those companies, we're the only one that has a meaningful mobile business as well. So we're in a better position to go across platforms.
Trip, I think what's interesting about Digital Chocolate and, Zynga and a couple of companies is the big difference between selling consoles and cartridges or new games or whatever it's going to be and this virtual goods business. What's the big difference there?
There's a couple of really enormous differences, and it's a way more efficient business model to have virtual goods. First of all, people can play for free. So you're going to get all this trial.
Giving things away for free is not a good business model.
Well, that's just a starting point. But if everybody gets a chance to try it, you're going to get a much larger audience. So that's one of the things we're seeing is way more people that don't think of themselves as gamers are trying games because they're free and their friends are playing them. And then when you talk about how you get some money out of it, the virtual goods basically allow you to optimize for how much money a customer is willing to spend. If the customer wants to only play for free, they only play for free. They're probably doing valuable things like promoting the game to their friends. They're also providing cannon fodder for the really good players that need to have somebody to beat. And the guys that want to win, so the more competitive players, again, the kind of people that maybe used to own a console like a PlayStation.
I remember when Quake went online, and I was one of those guys. I thought I'd jump in a room with my machine gun.
Swiss cheese, right?
And all of a sudden, somebody shows up with like a machete and a machine gun.
Exactly.
And,
yeah. So those customers that want to be very dominant, they're very competitive, they're the ones that are going to spend money. Now, in packaged goods, if you're selling a $60 game, there's a customer out there that would have given you $6,000 of virtual goods to be the king of that world, but they're only going to give you $60. And then you have other customers that would have given you maybe $30 or $5, and they have to give you $0 because it costs $60. And then none of them gets to really try it before they have to decide. So you can kind of see on the face of it, you get a lot more people to try it. It's easy to spread it virally. And you can get whatever amount of money a customer has available, and some of them get to feel like a king. That's a pretty good deal.
Trip, you're also a former employee, one of the earliest employees at Apple. They made a slew of announcements yesterday, and we spoke to an industry observer who suggested that Apple is kind of lagging in the gaming business. How do you think Apple is doing in terms of monopolizing and capitalizing on gaming opportunities?
Well, the one thing you have to give Apple credit for is that before Apple executed their vision of the iPod and the iPhone, nobody thought the entire surface of the phone should be a display. And it's been a completely transformative thing in the device business to have everyone now understand that, yeah, the kind of device you want to carry around, even a tablet, you want a really big, beautiful display. You want to have the kind of user interface experience that Apple has defined. So they've set the gold standard for this next generation of how people are going to use these very personal computers. On the other hand, Apple always has the viewpoint that they want to be the only manufacturer of their ecosystem, of their design standards, and other guys are going to be able to outflank that.
All right, Trip Hawkins, thanks for. We're going to be watching Digital Chocolate. It's going to be an interesting company to watch going forward, and with IPO mania. Who knows?
Who knows?
It'll be an interesting one to cover.